What's going on, guys? Stein back with another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a secret that I kind of taught myself, and how I also read this in a book, of how I can basically transform myself into being lazy to being productive. And there's two ways that I do this. I'll talk about the first way, which is a book, and I read in Brian Tracy's book, and it is called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. So in the book, he says that, I was reading a passage and it says, okay, so back to work, back to work, back to work. Those are the three simple things you say to yourself when you don't feel like working. And I've used that lately because as human beings, we always want to be lazy. We always want to be unproductive and not do things and sleep in, consume alcohol, consume things that feel good to us in the moment, because it's always about your feeling. It's always about how you're going to feel. So I say these three things: back to work, back to work, back to work. And I say them in my head. I don't say them out loud, but I say them in my head because this is what Brian Tracy recommended to say to yourself if you're having this feeling of not wanting to do anything because we need to be productive and we need to getting things done. And he said this is a trick because, like I said, we want to be sitting down, not doing anything as human beings, but this is a trick to allow yourself to do things because you always want to think positive. So if you sing back to work, back to back, back to work, it kind of just gets you in that momentum. Like I talk about, momentum is everything. So if you're working, it's going to be easier to work the next time. If you're lazy, it's going to be easier to be lazy the next time. So the second way is what Andy Frisella calls a production pivot. I talked about this before. Anything you think of negative, you turn that into a positive momentum. Anytime you think of something that's going to be negative in your life, you completely transform that to a positive solution. You think of the solution and you don't think of the problem, because everyone has problems, but not everyone thinks through solutions, and not everyone is curious enough to how we can improve the situation and how we can make it better, because there's always going to be a way, because somebody else has done what you wanted to do in your life, and they have a solution to that, whether that's the form of a YouTube video that they made, whether that's a book that they wrote, whether that's a speech that they've done. There's numerous sources of information that someone has done something that you've wanted to do, and it's out there. The information is out there, and it's a solution to our problems. And a lot of people just don't take this the right way. Friday and Saturday you drink every weekend, or for example, you say, I don't feel like going to work tomorrow. Well, okay, we'll do something about that. Make sure you're working on something. If you don't like your job, get a new job, or find a solution to make your job better. Maybe it's treating your employees better by putting yourself last and putting them before yourself, by talking to them about how they feel and how their day is going, things like that, instead of putting the focus off ourselves, because we always talk about ourselves as human beings and we never put focus on the other person, which is what we should be doing. Because How to Win Friends and Influence People, the #1 book of all time by Brandon Carter, put the other person before yourself, and then that way they will feel special and they will feel like you care about them, which you can care about them or you can fake care about them. Either way, they're still going to think you care about them, because you're putting them before yourself and you're not just saying anything about yourself, because we all know those people who just talk about themselves and we never are really interested in anything that they have to say, because they're not like no one really cares that they have to say, unless it's something traumatic, something that's a big deal. But even if it is something traumatic, I don't know what I was about to say there, but yeah, usually it's something traumatic that is important, because we always want stuff that's important. That's why I talk about important all the time. Important, important, important. Things that are important. Video games are not important. TV is not important. This is my personal opinion, but it's also just a fact, I believe, because 3 pillars of the good life: health, wealth, relationships. You need all three of those. And if what you're doing is not in those three pillars, you're wasting your time. I like 50 Cent's quote a lot. He says, if it ain't making me money, making me better, or making me happy, then I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. So you're making your money, there's your wealth. Making me happy, there's your relationships. And making me better, I would count that as health, like working out, things like that. It makes you better. So the three pillars, 50 Cent knows the three pillars of the good life, or the three most important areas of the good life. You always want to be incorporating these every single day, at every moment, because like that's what is going to improve your life at every moment. You want to be doing these things every day, because that's what will improve your life. I've seen it on myself, and I know it's going to happen for you guys if you focus on these three areas: health, wealth, relationships. Focus on any of these three areas and you will improve, because they're the most important areas of life. So don't focus on video games, don't focus on TV, focus on using that spare time. I'm reading the book Deep Work, where it talks about most people use their spend time watching television, or I think there was a certain amount of hours that the book said that people spend watching television per week, and it's just an insane amount of hours. I can't think of the number right now, but it's just an insane amount of time that you're just wasting by doing these things that have no ROI. Like I said before yesterday, return on investment it'll have no growth to you in the future, because we always want to think in the future. We do not want to think in the present. This is why so many people rely on their feelings instead of what actually needs to get done in order for you to feel better in the future, and not better right now, because that's what it's all about. It is all about your feelings, but it's not necessarily about, it's about getting stuff done, and feelings will come after you get things done, but it doesn't really matter. Like a lot of people talk about how disciplined you need to do things, like whether you feel like doing them or not. And this will have a ROI, return on investment. Thinking in the future, not thinking in the present. If you don't feel like working out, it'll be easier to skip a workout. It'll be easier to skip on your diet. It'll be easier to not work as hard at work, at your job, your career, and your relationships. You will fall apart because you've already had that bad momentum, and it just keeps on stacking. That's why momentum is so hard to create. But once you create it, I was just listening to a podcast, Andy Purcell. Once you create the momentum, it's just so much easier to keep it going and going and going. Don't break that chain. I just was reading a book yesterday, Deep Work. Don't break the chain. You track things every single day. Consistency, and you don't break that chain, because if you break the chain, then it'll be super hard to get back on track. And we don't want it to be hard. We want our lives to be easy. There's a quote out there. I don't know who says this, but this is just a saying. If you do what's hard, life will be easy. If you do what's easy, life will be hard. And that is the truth. Because you're thinking future you, and you're not thinking present you right now, because that's instant gratification, the pleasure. Delayed gratification is the future you. So if you do what's hard right now, your life will be easier way later on. If you do what's easy now, your life is going to be harder in the future, because your health is going to be out of shape. Let's say you eat all this food, your money is going to be out of shape because you're not taking care of that. Like everything has to evolve around the three pillars of the good life: health, wealth, relationships. All three. I talk about this all the time because they're important. Like I talked about, it's the most important areas of life, and I will never stop talking about them, because everything that you do in life should evolve around those three pillars. And that's basically this channel is how I can help you guys improve your lives, and how I can help you in the future to gain a better life, whether that's a better body, more money, better relationships, things like that, because this is what I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about life and living a good life, because no one wants to live a bad life. No one wants to live a life that means nothing and they feel inferior. Like I talked about, we want to feel superior and we want to feel good about ourselves. So be productive, do not be lazy. Use this trick, back to work, back to work, back to work. Use this trick on yourself to always get back to work and always work. Work and work and work. Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about in one of his speeches, you have to work and work and work and work. He repeats it, work and work and work. He repeats that in one of his speeches, and it's so important that you do that, because there will be an ROI. There will be a return on investment if you work all the time, instead of diving into your pleasures and drinking alcohol, doing all these things that have no ROI. That's the video for today. Like the video, comment, subscribe, turn your post notifications on. We will see you in the next video.